The incident took place at the very beginning of the 1980s. At that time, the rural area did not have electricity like it does today. After sunset, everything would gradually disappear into darkness. Once the night grew deeper, the village roads and paths would become completely deserted. People had to rely on kerosene lamps, hurricane lanterns, or small handheld lights to move around at night. Shahabuddin's in-laws' house was located in the neighboring area, relatively close to his own home. Between the two places were vast stretches of paddy fields. A narrow path ran through the middle of those fields. There was an old tamarind tree beside the path, and scattered throughout the fields were several old homesteads. These homesteads did not have any specific names. The villagers simply referred to them as baita, meaning old homestead grounds. When someone from the families who owned these homesteads died, they were often buried there. So although these places seemed completely normal during the daytime, people generally avoided passing through them at night. Since Shahabuddin's in-laws lived nearby, he would occasionally visit their house. Whenever his in-laws cooked something special, they would send someone to inform him. Something like this happened one evening. It was late afternoon, just before the Maghrib prayer, when two people from Shahabuddin's in-laws' house came to invite him. They told him, "Please come over tonight, have dinner with us, and take some food home for your wife as well." Shahabuddin agreed. Later that afternoon, he set off for his in-laws' house. He had to follow the narrow path that ran through the middle of the fields. It was not very far from the beginning of the path to his in-laws' house, but everyone knew the old tamarind tree standing beside the road. Nothing unusual happened when Shahabuddin passed by the tamarind tree on his way there. He reached his in-laws' house safely. After arriving, he spent some time talking with everyone. Meanwhile, his mother-in-law had prepared fish and beef for dinner. Shahabuddin sat down and ate some of the food there. Afterward, his mother-in-law separately packed some fish and beef into an earthen pot so that his wife could eat it at home. The food was carefully wrapped in a cloth and tied securely so that nothing would spill while he was walking home. It was approximately 9:30 at night. In those days, 9:30 at night was considered quite late in village life. Especially because there was still no electricity in the area, most people would go to sleep shortly after evening. It was common for people to pray Isha and then go straight to bed. Shahabuddin did not stay there much longer either. After finishing his meal, he said goodbye to his in-laws. He was carrying the pot of food that had been prepared for his wife. On his way home, he was carrying a small steel kerosene lamp. There was kerosene oil inside the lamp, and its wick was made from jute fiber. That faint light was Shahabuddin's only source of illumination as he walked through the darkness. With the pot of food in one hand and the kerosene lamp in the other, he slowly began walking toward his home. Everything around him was completely silent. There was no sound of people anywhere in the distance. Only the silence of the night and the occasional chirping of crickets could be heard. As he walked, Shahabuddin eventually reached the familiar tamarind tree. From there, he would have to leave the path and walk through the paddy field to reach his home. Just as he was about to step off the path and enter the field, suddenly his eyes fell upon the base of the tamarind tree. There was a figure that looked like a woman standing there. Shahabuddin stopped for a moment, because there had been no one there just a short while earlier. In the faint light of the kerosene lamp, he could not see the figure clearly. All he could make out was that a woman was standing at the base of the tree, staring directly at him. At first, Shahabuddin thought she might be a mentally disturbed woman. Perhaps she had somehow wandered there and was sitting there alone. He thought to himself, no normal person would come to such an isolated place at this hour of the night. So, without giving it much importance, he continued walking forward. 1 step, 2 steps. Just then, a woman behind him called him by his name. "Hey, Shahabuddin?" The voice came from the base of the tamarind tree again. "Your mother-in-law gave you fish and meat, didn't she? Give me some, will you, my dear? Are you going to eat everything yourselves? I'm hungry too." Shahabuddin was stunned. How could this woman possibly know what he was carrying? The food was inside a covered earthen pot. There was no way she could have known what was inside it. Shahabuddin then said, "Who are you? And why should I give you the food?" A voice came from the base of the tree. Give it to me. Otherwise, you will be harmed. Shahabuddin replied, There's no one around here who can harm me. I'm afraid of no one except Allah. After hearing those words, it seemed as though the figure had become extremely angry, and then Shahabuddin witnessed something terrifying. He saw the figure suddenly climbing up the tamarind tree in a completely unnatural manner. The way it moved was impossible for a normal human being. Imagine someone placing both hands on the ground, lifting both legs into the air, and trying to walk with their hands while their feet pointed upward. That was exactly how the figure moved. Supporting itself on its hands, with both legs raised upward, the figure began climbing the tamarind tree. It moved upward along the trunk in that horrifying position. And once it reached higher up the tree, the figure disappeared from sight. Shahabuddin finally understood that this was not an ordinary incident. He was a very brave man. Someone else in his place might have been terrified and completely frozen there. But Shahabuddin was accustomed to being out alone late at night. He was involved in the cattle business, so he often had to return home alone at very late hours. He also had a great passion for fishing, especially fishing at night. Because of this, he had very little fear of the darkness or of being alone at night. He performed his 5 daily prayers and also knew some basic du'as and verses. So, keeping his courage, Shahabuddin continued walking forward. After some time, he reached the area between the 2 old homesteads. There was one on his left and another on his right. And then he noticed something. A figure was sitting in the middle of one of the homesteads, and the figure was crying. At first, Shahabuddin thought perhaps it was a relative of someone who had been buried there. Out of basic human concern, he moved a little closer and asked, "Which house have you come from?" His intention was simple. Perhaps he could explain to the woman that staying in such a place at this late hour was not safe and somehow persuade her to return home. Especially since she was a woman, he was worried that something might happen to her. With that thought in mind, Shahabuddin continued moving toward the figure. But then he noticed something strange. From the other homestead on his left, he heard the exact same sound of crying. Now the sound was no longer coming from in front of him. It was coming from behind him. Shahabuddin immediately realized that this was not something ordinary. The figure he had seen earlier, the one he had been walking toward, was no longer there. And yet the crying sound he had been hearing was now coming from the other homestead. That was when Shahabuddin understood. The figure he had seen near the tamarind tree must have been following him. He had not reached home yet, and it seemed that whatever this thing was, it was still trying to follow him and somehow get the food he was carrying. Shahabuddin decided not to go anywhere near that homestead. Instead, he would go straight home. So he continued walking directly toward his house, leaving the paddy fields between his in-laws' house and his own home behind him. It would take roughly 10 to 12 minutes to reach home from where he was. But now he was thinking about the strange events that had been happening around him. He considered running with the kerosene lamp in his hand, but if he ran, the flame might go out. He was also carrying an earthen pot. If he ran too fast, the pot could break from the shaking. So he could not really run. At most, he could walk as quickly as possible. And that was exactly what he began doing. At that time, there were no crops growing in the paddy fields. It was early winter, and the crops had already been harvested. As Shahabuddin hurried along the path, suddenly he heard a strange sound. There was a small room beside the path where a shallow tube well machine was kept. A light was burning inside that room. The room itself was made of corrugated tin sheets. From inside, Shahabuddin heard a strange sound. Kot-kot, kot-kot, chop-chop, chop-chop. It sounded as though someone was noisily eating something. Shahabuddin thought perhaps a fox or a dog had taken a duck or chicken from someone's house and was sitting inside the room eating it. His curiosity got the better of him. He slowly moved toward the room. He thought to himself, there was already a light burning inside. Whatever was sitting in there eating would surely be visible. So Shahabuddin walked closer to the room. At first, Shahabuddin thought about opening the door. But then he changed his mind. No, I shouldn't open it. If there's an animal inside, it might get frightened as soon as I open the door. If it tries to rush outside and bites me, that would create another problem. so he decided not to open the door. Instead, he noticed that the corrugated tin wall had several holes in it. Over the years, rust had eaten away at different parts of the tin, leaving small openings. Shahabuddin put one eye against one of those holes and tried to see what was actually happening inside. The moment he looked through the hole, he was terrified, because the figure he had seen sitting beside the tamarind tree earlier seemed to be sitting inside the room as well. But this time, it was facing the opposite direction. Something was lying in front of it. It appeared to be something human, and the figure was doing something horrifying. It was pulling pieces from that body, tearing them apart, and eating them. Shahabuddin watched for around 10 seconds. Then suddenly, something changed. It seemed as though the figure realized that someone was watching it. It immediately stopped eating. Slowly, it turned its head backward, and it looked directly toward the exact spot where Shahabuddin was watching through the hole in the tin wall. His gaze was fixed straight at him. Then Shahabuddin noticed something even more horrifying. The figure was holding a human hand in its hand. It appeared to be chewing on it. And then the figure did something terrifying. It took the piece of the human hand it was holding and threw it directly toward the hole. Because it hit the upper part of the tin wall, it did not strike Shahabuddin's body directly. But, crash, the object hit the tin with a loud sound. Shahabuddin immediately jumped several feet backward. Then he turned around and ran toward his home as fast as he could. At that moment, he no longer cared about the food. If the earthen pot fell and the food was ruined, so be it. He had to save his life. Shahabuddin started running, and as soon as he began running, he heard a sound coming from behind him. Thump, 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 thump. He was certain that the thing was following him. He kept running for 1 or 2 minutes, but eventually he became exhausted and had to slow down. He began walking instead. Once he reached the main road, it would take him only about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes to reach his house. Then he noticed something else. He still had the kerosene lamp in his hand. By Allah's mercy, the flame had not gone out. The lamp was casting his shadow on the ground. But whenever Shahabuddin reached a slight bend in the road, something strange happened. He could see another shadow behind his own. It looked as though someone was walking behind him, following him. Every time the path curved slightly, he could see what appeared to be a second shadow behind him. But Shahabuddin did not turn around. He kept walking. As he got closer to his house, he suddenly heard a harsh masculine voice. The voice said, "Shahabuddin, you have to give me your fish and meat. Otherwise, something very bad will happen to you." Until then, he had heard a woman's voice. He had seen a female figure. But now he was hearing a man's voice. Even after hearing it, Shahabuddin did not look back. He continued toward the main road. Once he reached it, he heard another sound from behind him. This time, the voice was no longer harsh or loud. It was a deep whisper. "You didn't give it to me, did you? Remember this, you are under my watch from today. If I ever get you in my hands, I will kill you." After that, Shahabuddin heard nothing more. He quickly made his way home. He was so frightened that when he entered the house, he did not even wash his hands or feet. He simply lay down. Meanwhile, his wife had been awake, waiting for him. She asked, "What happened? Why did you come home and lie down like that? Aren't you going to wash your hands and feet? Aren't you going to eat?" Shahabuddin replied, "I'm not going to eat. I already ate there. You eat quickly and go to sleep. I'll tell you everything tomorrow. I don't have the strength to talk right now." The next morning, after waking up, Shahabuddin told his wife everything that had happened to him. After hearing the entire story, his wife gave him some advice. She said, "Go to the imam at the mosque. Ask him to recite some du'as and verses and blow over you. Inshallah, everything will be all right." That day, Shahabuddin went to the mosque for the Asr prayer. After the prayer, he told the imam everything that had happened. The imam listened carefully. Then he told Shahabuddin, "It seems that a jinn from that old homestead has attached itself to you. In the language of our village, we call such a being a shash. Surely, this is the thing that has been following you." The imam then recited some du'as and verses and blew over Shahabuddin. He also warned him, "Be a little careful from now on. Shahabuddin thought perhaps the incident had finally come to an end. But in reality, the incident had only just begun. That evening, after performing the Isha prayer, Shahabuddin started walking home. When he reached close to his house, just as he was about to enter, there was a room belonging particularly to his sister, located just before the entrance to their home. The room belonged to the aunt of the person who had sent us this incident. The aunt's room and Shahabuddin's cowshed were right next to each other. There was a narrow passage between them, about 2 to 3 feet wide, just wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side. Shahabuddin had to cross this narrow passage to enter the house. As soon as he reached the front of the passage, he saw something horrifying. A massive snake was lying there. It was almost as thick as the entire width of the passage, and it had raised its hood to a height nearly equal to the height of the cowshed, staring directly at Shahabuddin. Shahabuddin said that the moment he saw it, he had no strength left in his body. Not enough to run, not even enough to scream. He said sweat began pouring from his entire body. It felt as though he was experiencing what people sometimes call a death sweat. The kind of overwhelming sweat that comes over someone when they are terrified to the point of feeling that they might die. Then Shahabuddin saw the snake slowly moving toward him, its hood still raised. Came closer and closer. It looked as though it was about to strike. And at that exact moment, Shahabuddin could no longer remain conscious. He fainted and collapsed onto the ground. His sister's room was right beside the passage. She heard a loud thud, as if something had suddenly fallen to the ground. Wondering what had happened, she came outside to look. She saw someone lying on the ground. As she came closer, she realized it was her brother, Shahabuddin, lying unconscious. She immediately began screaming for help. People came rushing out from the surrounding rooms. When everyone saw Shahabuddin lying there unconscious, they carried him inside. Water was poured over his head, and everyone tried to bring him back to consciousness. After about an hour to an hour and a half, Shahabuddin finally regained consciousness. Everyone gathered around him and asked what had happened. Shahabuddin then told them everything he had seen. After hearing the story, everyone advised him not to wander around outside late at night anymore. They also told him that he should consult a more experienced religious scholar. Shahabuddin agreed. He thought that he should definitely find a more knowledgeable religious scholar. The following day, after saying goodbye to his wife, Shahabuddin left home to go and bring back some cattle. Cattle trading was his business. He would travel to distant places to purchase cattle, bring them back, raise them for some time, and then sell them at another market for a higher price. That was how he made his living. So, after saying goodbye to his wife, Shahabuddin set off to purchase cattle. He reached the cattle market, bought the animals, and completed his business. The following night, at around 1 in the morning, he finally arrived back in his village. He was bringing 6 or 7 cattle with him. He tied the cattle together, connecting them all to a single rope. He held the rope in one hand and a stick in the other. He also had a packet of bidi cigarettes in his pocket. He had developed the habit of smoking bidis many years earlier, so he was smoking a bidi as he walked along. One hand held the stick, the other held the rope attached to all the cattle. And although he had gone to the cattle market, he had not gone alone. Several other people from his village had also gone to purchase cattle. Usually, when they bought cattle from far away, they would transport them by vehicle. Once they got close to the village, they would get off and release the cattle because those trucks or transport vehicles could not enter the narrow village roads. Each person would then take his cattle and walk home separately. By that time, everyone who had gone with Shahabuddin had already taken their cattle and returned home. So now, Shahabuddin was completely alone, walking home with his cattle. As he approached his house, he was still walking along the road when suddenly, he saw something terrifying. The same enormous snake he had seen that night between the 2 rooms, the same horrifying snake that had raised its hood in the narrow passage, was now lying across the road. It had stretched itself from one side of the road to the other. Shahabuddin immediately became terrified. He realized that whatever this thing was, it had not stopped following him. He began reciting whatever du'as and verses he knew. He kept reciting them as he stood there. Then he picked up a handful of soil from the road. He recited those prayers over the soil, blew onto it, and then threw the handful of soil toward the snake. The moment the soil struck the snake, it seemed as though someone had hit its body with tremendous force. The snake began twisting and writhing violently. It moved and thrashed in the same way a snake, or even a worm-like creature, might writhe when something suddenly strikes its body with great force. The snake began writhing and twisting violently. It was almost like the way a lizard's tail keeps jumping and moving after it has been cut off. It seemed as though the snake had started doing the same thing. And then something even stranger happened. The snake began getting smaller. Slowly, gradually, its size kept decreasing. And as this continued, the snake eventually disappeared somewhere beside the road. Shahabuddin stood there for a while, completely still. Then, after some time, he slowly continued toward home. There was a mosque near his house. When he came close to the mosque, he noticed a wooden stretcher lying outside. Apparently, there was a custom in that area that whenever a dead body was carried on a stretcher, the stretcher would be left outside the mosque for several days afterward. Someone had died in the area recently, and Shahabuddin knew about it. He had even attended that person's funeral prayer. Perhaps that was why the stretcher had been left outside. But when Shahabuddin looked at it, he noticed something inside the stretcher. Something wrapped in a white burial shroud. He became frightened. What is this? How did a dead body get here? There shouldn't be a body here at this time of night. If there really were a body here, there would be other people around it too. At that moment, he remembered what had just happened with the snake on the road. He thought to himself, "No, I'm not going to be free from these things anymore." It seemed that whatever was following him had once again appeared in front of him. Then something else happened. When the snake had appeared on the road a short while earlier, the cattle accompanying Shahabuddin had remained completely calm. But this time, the cattle suddenly became extremely restless. They began moving around frantically. Then they started trying to run. Shahabuddin could not simply let them go. These were newly purchased cattle. They did not know where their owner's home was. If they escaped, they could run all over the village, creating an even bigger problem. So Shahabuddin held tightly onto the rope connecting the cattle and struggled to control them while trying to bring them toward his house. But when he got close to home, something happened suddenly. The ropes slipped out of Shahabuddin's hands. He became extremely worried. Where would these cattle go now? They were new cattle. He had never raised them before. The cattle that already knew his home would recognize the cowshed and go inside on their own. But these new cattle had no idea where the cowshed was. Shahabuddin watched as the cattle seemed to run off in different directions. The ropes that had been tied around their necks and connected to one another seemed to come apart as well. Some ran one way while others ran in another direction. Shahabuddin thought, "How am I going to find 5 or 6 cattle, or even 6 or 7 cattle, at this hour of the night?" His mind stopped working properly. He decided that the best thing to do was to go home quickly. Once he reached home, he would wake everyone up and ask them to help search for the cattle. After all, those cattle were his investment. He had bought them so that he could sell them later. If he lost them, how would he ever be able to buy cattle again? So Shahabuddin rushed home and began calling out for everyone. His wife came outside. Shahabuddin immediately said, "Come outside quickly. The cattle have escaped. We need to find them. We'll need more people to help search for them." His wife looked at him in confusion and said, "What cattle are you talking about? They're all in the cowshed. I can hear the cattle inside the cowshed." Shahabuddin was stunned. How could they be in the cowshed? These are new cattle. They don't know where our cowshed is. After hearing this, his wife was also surprised. Was that really true? Shahabuddin immediately went to the cowshed to check. And when he looked inside, all of the cattle were there. Every single one of them was standing inside the cowshed. Yet these were newly purchased cattle. There was no reason for them to know where the cowshed was. His wife said, "You must have tied them up and brought them inside. Otherwise, who else would have tied them up? They're new cattle." Shahabuddin replied, "No, I didn't tie them up. That's not what happened. This is exactly what happened." His wife did not discuss the matter any further that night. The following morning, they brought new ropes for the cattle. Some additional ropes were also made. Then the cattle were washed, fed, and properly taken care of. Oil was rubbed onto their horns, and they were given whatever care they needed. That afternoon, they decided to take the cattle to a nearby weekly cattle market, where a cattle market was held every Sunday. Since there were quite a few cattle, Shahabuddin decided to take along the father of the person who had sent us this incident. At that time, the boy was around 15 to 18 years old. Shahabuddin thought having someone with him would make things easier, especially because there were so many cattle to handle. By the grace of Allah, the day went well. They successfully managed to sell all of the cattle. Afterward, Shahabuddin thought, "This boy has worked hard helping me. I should at least buy him something to eat. Otherwise, he might say, 'Big brother made me work so hard and didn't even feed me anything.'" Thinking this, the two of them went into a restaurant. They had a good meal together. Afterward, they bought some food to take home and did some additional shopping as well. Then they started heading back home. Just before entering their home, there were 4 trees standing beside the main dirt road. There was a mango tree and 3 palm trees. When they reached that spot, they suddenly heard a rustling sound coming from the leaves of one of the palm trees. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Both Shahabuddin and his younger brother looked upward, but they could not see anything, so they continued walking forward. After they had gone a little farther, they noticed something among the branches of the mango tree. It looked as though someone was sitting there, gently swinging back and forth. Raqib's father became quite frightened. He turned to his elder brother, Shahabuddin, and said, "Brother, look at that. It looks like a woman is sitting there, swinging back and forth. How did a woman come here at this hour of the night? Is she crazy or something?" Shahabuddin immediately understood what was happening. He quietly told his younger brother, "Be quiet. Don't say anything. Just follow me and stay silent. It might be some mentally disturbed woman. If she realizes that we've noticed her, we could be in trouble. She might start throwing stones at us or even follow us." Shahabuddin had already understood what was going on, but he did not want his younger brother to realize the truth. He was afraid that his brother might panic. After they passed the mango tree and came near the palm trees again, it suddenly seemed as though someone had thrown a clump of dirt from the top of one of the palm trees. Then, the stones began raining down on them. Although none of the stones actually hit them, something even stranger happened. The moment the stones hit the ground, they crumbled into tiny pieces. Seeing this, Raqib's father became extremely frightened. He finally realized that what they had witnessed earlier was not normal either. Meanwhile, Shahabuddin understood that his younger brother had also realized that something was seriously wrong. Raqib's father was not a little child anymore. He was somewhere between 15 and 18 years old. He was old enough to understand what was happening. Shahabuddin grabbed his younger brother firmly by the hand and suddenly ran toward home. They ran all the way back to the house. Shahabuddin's wife was still awake. She knew they might be returning late that night, so she had not gone to sleep. When she saw the two of them arrive, both of them were breathing heavily. She immediately asked, "What happened? Why are both of you breathing like that?" They then told her everything that had happened. After hearing the entire story, Shahabuddin's wife said, "Neither of you should enter the house before taking a bath." So both Shahabuddin and his younger brother took a bath and then went inside the house. That night, they did not eat anything. They simply went to bed. The next morning, Shahabuddin's wife shared the incident with Raqib's grandmother and some of the people living nearby. After hearing everything, everyone advised Shahabuddin to go to Maulana Saiful, a religious scholar who lived near a local market. According to the villagers, he had helped resolve many different kinds of paranormal problems in the area, by the grace of Allah. They said that Shahabuddin needed to go and see him. Shahabuddin agreed. "All right, I'll go tomorrow." But the next day came, and Shahabuddin became busy with other things. He suddenly remembered that he had to go to another cattle market to purchase cattle. Because of that, the matter of visiting the religious scholar completely slipped his mind. He had also begun to take the incident less seriously. And because of that, several days passed without him going to see the religious scholar. Then, one night, Shahabuddin went out again with his younger brother, Raqib's father. This time, they went out to catch fish. Since Shahabuddin had been advised not to travel alone at night anymore, the two brothers went together. They were going fishing using a method that people in their village apparently called alomara. The method involved carrying a light in one hand and a fishing spear in the other. Raqib's father had a small spear, while Shahabuddin carried a larger one. They stepped down into the water. It was a mild winter night. There was no rain, and the water level in the canal was quite low. That was why they had decided it would be a good time to go fishing. Slowly, they began searching through the water for fish. After fishing for some time, they suddenly noticed a large fish caught in a current net. Because the water level was low, many people had placed current nets in the water. The two brothers looked at the trapped fish. Then a mischievous idea came into their minds. They thought they could simply take the fish out of the net and bring it home. After all, it was the middle of the night. They thought no one would see them. When they reached the net, they discovered that a huge fish, weighing around 10 to 15 kilograms, was trapped inside it. The two of them carefully held the net together and managed to remove the fish. After taking the fish out, they decided that there was no need to continue fishing that night. That's enough for today. Let's go home. They picked up the fish and started heading back toward home. Suddenly, they heard a voice coming from behind them. "Hey, that belongs to me. Give it to me. Otherwise, something very bad will happen to you too." Shahabuddin immediately thought of the mischievous Jinn that had occasionally come to bother him. He thought, "It must be that troublesome Jinn again. It has come back." The two brothers immediately started running and made their way onto the main road. As they continued along the road, they heard someone whispering from behind them, "That's my child. Give him back to me. Otherwise, I won't spare either of you." Both Raqib's father and Shahabuddin heard the voice clearly. They ran all the way home. Neither of them dared to look back to see whether anyone was actually following them. That very night, after returning home, Shahabuddin had a dream. In the dream, he saw a tall man wearing a long robe. The man said to him, "You have taken my son away. Let him go. Otherwise, I will wipe out your entire family line." The next morning, Shahabuddin woke up and did not pay much attention to the dream. But when his wife went to cook, she discovered that the fish was missing from the cooking pot. Everyone assumed that perhaps a thief had taken it. The following day, Shahabuddin once again left to purchase cattle. This time, he went to another distant area to buy cattle. That night was slightly rainy. There was a light drizzle falling through the mist. The following night, at around midnight, Shahabuddin returned home. He washed his hands and feet and had his meal. Around 1 in the morning, he suddenly needed to use the bathroom. In village homes, bathrooms were often built some distance away from the main house. There was a belief that if a bathroom was built too close to the house, the place could become a dwelling for evil spirits, Jinn, or other supernatural beings. That was why many villagers built their bathrooms away from the house. So Shahabuddin walked toward the bathroom. But when he reached the bathroom door, he saw the same tall man wearing the long robe standing there. It was the exact same man he had seen in his dream. Shahabuddin froze. He stood there completely rigid, unable to move. The figure slowly took a few steps toward him. And then, the man slapped Shahabuddin with such tremendous force that Shahabuddin fell straight to the ground with a loud thud. The man began shouting, "I will destroy your entire family. You took my son away. You couldn't even eat him. We have already taken him back. But I will not spare you, my dear. You have caused me tremendous harm. You tried to kill my son. How dare you? I told you to let him go, but you refused." Then, according to Shahabuddin, the tall man wearing the long robe reached inside his clothing and pulled out a sharp knife. He took the knife out and began walking toward Shahabuddin. At that moment, his wife suddenly came out of the house. She saw Shahabuddin pleading with someone, begging them to let him go. She immediately shouted, "What is happening? Who are you talking to?" The moment she said this, the tall man in the long robe disappeared. His wife rushed over to Shahabuddin. What happened? She found him trembling violently with fear. Seeing him in that condition, she began shouting for help. People came running out from the other rooms. Shahabuddin then told everyone everything that had happened. His father asked him, "Did you ever go to Maulana Saiful, the religious scholar we told you about?" Shahabuddin replied, "No, I never went." Everyone became angry with him and started scolding him. They told him, "You have to go tomorrow. Otherwise, it seems there may be no way to save you." There was nothing else to do. The following afternoon, Shahabuddin went to the madrasa where Maulana Saiful taught. When he arrived, the religious scholar was teaching a class. After he became free, Shahabuddin told him everything that had happened. The religious scholar listened carefully. Then he said, "All right, I will come to your house after the Asr prayer." After performing the Asr prayer, Maulana Saiful came to Shahabuddin's house. When he arrived, he said, "Come here, sit in front of me." He called Shahabuddin closer. Then the religious scholar closed his eyes and began doing something quietly. After a while, he started speaking. He explained that the Jinn who had originally demanded the food from Shahabuddin had been following him ever since that first encounter. But the huge fish they had caught was not connected to that Jinn. According to the religious scholar, the fish was actually the son of a Jinn leader. The young Jinn had apparently come to the water to play and had become trapped in the fishing net. Shahabuddin and his younger brother had unknowingly taken him away, intending to eat the fish. The religious scholar explained that getting rid of this new problem would be difficult, because these were two different Jinn belonging to two different clans. Then the religious scholar said, "All right, after Isha prayer tonight, I will sit in prayer and perform the necessary rituals. Let's see what can be done." After the Isha prayer, the religious scholar drew a protective circle on the ground. He sat inside one circle, while Shahabuddin was instructed to sit inside another. After a while, something strange happened. Shahabuddin's voice suddenly changed. His body jerked violently, and then he began speaking in a strange voice, a mixture of a woman's voice and a man's voice. The voice said, "Maulana, you know that I am the one who has been wronged here. This man tried to kill my chief's son. I will not spare him. What will happen to my honor in front of my chief? I was responsible for guarding the boy. I have already lost all my honor and reputation. If I do not kill this man, I will lose all respect within my clan." The religious scholar began speaking calmly and pleading with the Jinn. Listen, they did not understand what they were doing. They didn't know that the fish was actually your chief's son. The Jinn replied, "That is what all humans say. They commit a wrong and then say they didn't understand. Whether they understood or not, the damage has already been done to us. What does your Sharia say? Doesn't it say, a life for a life? That is all I want." The religious scholar replied, "A life for a life only applies when someone has actually lost their life. Did your chief's son die? No, his life was not taken. You took him away safely. So if you now try to take this man's life, you will be held responsible for it on the day of judgment. Would that really be right? Instead, let me offer you something as a gift. Take it and let this man go." The Jinn replied, "My chief's son came very close to death, yet he survived. I know exactly how humiliated I have become in front of my chief. Do you really think I will simply accept some compensation and let him go?" This continued for quite some time. Eventually, the religious scholar became stern. He warned the Jinn, "If you do not leave this man alone, I will imprison you." The moment the Jinn heard this, it gave a strange laugh. Then, somehow, it stepped out of the protective circle and disappeared. The religious scholar became deeply concerned. The circle he had drawn was not something an ordinary Jinn could simply enter and leave. The fact that this Jinn had managed to leave it made the religious scholar realize just how powerful these beings were. He then told all the members of Shahabuddin's family, "These Jinn are water Jinn. They are extremely powerful. The wisest thing to do is to reason with them and convince them to leave you alone. We should not expect to defeat them through strength." The religious scholar then said, "Give me a few days. I will see what can be done." That night, The religious scholar sealed the house with protective prayers and gave Shahabuddin water that had been recited over. Then he returned to the madrasa. The religious scholar had a group of jinn who were loyal to him and sometimes assisted him with various matters. He called upon them. He told them, "Please help me. Go to the chief of that jinn clan and deliver my message. Explain the situation to him and ask him to let this man go." Following the religious scholar's instructions, his loyal jinn went to the chief. This was the chief of the very clan to which the fish-like jinn belonged, the father of the jinn that Shahabuddin and Raqib's father had unknowingly taken away. They delivered the religious scholar's message to the chief. After hearing the message, the chief said, "All right, I understand everything now. He is a good man. He is highly respected and always helps people. For the sake of the religious scholar, we will let this man go. But tell the religious scholar one thing. This man must never come to this area again. Especially, he must never come here to fish in these waters. That is my order." After hearing this, the religious scholar's jinn left the chief and returned. They told the religious scholar everything that had happened. The next morning, after the far prayer, the religious scholar went to Shahabuddin's house. He explained everything to the family. He also gave Shahabuddin a serious warning. Do not go there to fish again, and from now on, do not walk around alone at night. After that, nothing significant happened to Shahabuddin for some time. But the story was not over. There was still another, much bigger chapter left. Nearly a month passed. For around 25 or 26 days, nothing major happened to Shahabuddin. Then the strange incidents began again. And this time, it was not only Shahabuddin who experienced them. The entire family began experiencing strange things. For example, whenever someone went to the bathroom at night, they would sometimes see a white figure standing nearby. Chickens would disappear from the chicken coop. They would simply vanish without a trace. Things inside the house would be found completely scattered and turned upside down. And at night, someone would enter their cowshed and release the cattle. The ropes would be untied, and the cowshed door would be opened. It seemed as though something was deliberately disturbing the entire family. The cattle would run off in different directions. Little incidents like this continued to happen from time to time. Then, one night, the incident became much more intense. Shahabuddin was returning home from the market. In his hand, he was carrying some fried food for the family. When he reached about the middle of the road, there were no houses around. It was a long stretch of the main road, and there were no houses visible on either side. That was when he noticed a white figure standing on one side of the road. It was a moonlit night, so he could clearly see that the figure appeared to be a man. Shahabuddin thought perhaps the man was afraid to walk home alone and was waiting for someone so they could go together. Thinking this, Shahabuddin walked toward him and said, "Brother, are you afraid to go home alone? Come, walk with me." But the moment he said this, he noticed something strange. The man was wearing a turban, and the long loose end of the turban had been pulled around to the front and was covering his entire face. Then the man slowly moved that part of the turban away from his face. What Shahabuddin saw made his blood run cold. It was an old man. Blood was pouring from his mouth. His face was round and unusually flat. And then, without making a sound, the old man began to smile. He had no teeth. His nose was unusually long and prominent. Then the figure spoke to Shahabuddin. "Hey you, where are you going to run today? You didn't give me the food that day. I've been trying to kill you for so long, but I never managed to find you alone." The moment Shahabuddin heard this, he turned around and ran for his life. He kept running without looking back. As he ran, he could hear something coming after him from behind. Thud, thud, thud. Something was following him. But Shahabuddin never turned around. He ran all the way home. The strangest part was what happened to the fried food he had been carrying. He had bought things like beguni, potato chops, and piaju for his family. When he finally reached home, he handed the package to his wife. But when she opened the paper bag, there was nothing inside. Absolutely nothing. Only the empty paper wrapping remained. However, there was clear evidence that something had actually been inside the bag. The paper was soaked with oil in several places. The greasy marks showed that the fried food had really been inside it. Shahabuddin then told his wife everything that had happened on the road. After hearing the entire story, she said, "You need to go back to the religious scholar again. Tell him that the jinn he said would leave you alone has started following you again." The next day, Shahabuddin went to Maulana Saiful and told him everything. The religious scholar was extremely surprised. He said, "No, this shouldn't have happened." However, since Shahabuddin had told him about the incident, he decided to investigate the matter again. It was Friday and the religious scholar told him, "I will come to your house 3 days from now, inshallah." And exactly 3 days later, Maulana Saiful came to their house. After arriving, he revealed something extremely frightening. The religious scholar had once again sent a message to the jinn chief through his own jinn. But this time, the chief said that he wanted to speak directly with the religious scholar. The jinn chief invited the religious scholar to visit their realm. The religious scholar asked, "But how am I supposed to come to your realm?" The jinn then showed him a way. Near the shed where the irrigation machine was located, the same place where Shahabuddin had once heard those strange eating sounds, there was a large pond-like body of water. The jinn told him that at a specific time he would have to go there alone. They also taught him a particular prayer. He was instructed to recite that prayer when he reached the water. After reciting it, a staircase would rise out of the water. Several guards would be waiting there to escort him. He would not have to do anything. He would simply have to step onto the staircase. The staircase would then descend slowly beneath the water. Once he reached the other side, he would be able to meet the jinn and speak directly with their chief. And that was exactly what happened. The religious scholar went there at the appointed time. He recited the prayer. Suddenly, he saw a staircase rising out of the water. In the darkness, the staircase appeared strangely bright. 2 guards were standing on either side of it. They looked almost exactly like human beings. However, each of them was holding something resembling a spear. The 2 guards greeted him and said, "You have been invited. Please come with us." The religious scholar returned their greeting. Then he stepped onto the staircase. Slowly, the staircase began sinking beneath the water. The religious scholar became frightened as he felt himself gradually descending underwater. But once he had completely gone beneath the surface, he saw something extraordinary. All around him stood a massive structure surrounded by walls, resembling an enormous royal palace. And within that enormous boundary, there were many other buildings. The buildings were white, almost as if they had been constructed from marble stone. Then one of the guards said to the religious scholar, "You see that palace in front of you? Go inside. Everyone is waiting for you." When the religious scholar entered the palace, he saw a huge royal court. Someone was sitting on a throne. Everyone there looked completely human. There was nothing unusual or frightening about their appearance. Several figures that looked like ordinary people were standing nearby, holding flowers in their hands. As soon as the religious scholar entered, they began throwing flower petals toward him, just as we sometimes see during celebrations in the human world. The man sitting on the throne remained seated and greeted the religious scholar. The religious scholar returned the greeting and then said, "You sent for me. You could have simply sent a message through my jinn. Why did you bring me here personally? I don't really understand." The chief replied, "No, actually, I wanted to see what you were really like in person. That's why I brought you directly to our realm. And besides, I want to make you an offer. I would be very happy if you accepted it willingly." The chief then explained that he wanted the religious scholar to teach his son, the same fish-like jinn who had been taken away by Shahabuddin and his younger brother. The boy was called into the royal court. A boy around 14 or 15 years old entered. He looked just like an ordinary teenage boy from the human world. He greeted the religious scholar. The chief then said, "I want you to teach my son." The religious scholar agreed. Then he brought up the earlier matter. "But you told me that your people would make sure that the man was no longer disturbed. Yet he has been bothered again." The moment he heard this, the chief's expression changed. His face became dark, and he remained silent for 2 or 3 seconds. Then he said, "No, he shouldn't have dared to do something like that. He is one of my most trusted followers. I entrusted my son to him. I still trust him. He would never disobey my command and go there again. He shouldn't have such courage." Then he paused and said, "However, since you have told me this, I will investigate the matter right now." He immediately summoned that Jinn. The Jinn appeared almost instantly. The chief asked him, "Did you go and disturb that man, Shahabuddin, again?" The Jinn replied, "No, I didn't. You ordered me not to go there, and I obeyed you. I haven't gone back." The chief looked at the religious scholar and said, "You heard him. He says he didn't go. So there must be something else going on." He then summoned one of the guards with a simple movement of his eyes. The guard immediately came forward. The chief whispered something into his ear. The guard then left. A complete silence fell over the royal court. For nearly 5 to 10 minutes, nobody said a word. Everyone remained completely silent. The religious scholar also waited quietly. Then the guard finally returned. He approached the chief and whispered something into his ear. After hearing the message, the chief turned to the religious scholar and said, "Maulana, I have received the information. It was actually the same Jinn that Shahabuddin encountered on the very first night. That Jinn has returned and started disturbing him again." The chief continued, "If we wanted to, we could capture that Jinn. We could imprison him. We could even kill him. But that would not be the right thing to do, because this Jinn is also a Muslim Jinn. He belongs to another clan, and I know the chief of that clan personally. If I were to harm this Jinn, his chief would be offended with me. That would not be good for our world. I am going to send a message to his chief and speak with him directly. He is actually a very good chief. But not everyone in a clan is the same. There are always some who are mischievous, troublesome, or even evil. This particular Jinn is one of those. But don't worry, I will take care of the matter." The religious scholar continued speaking with the chief for some time. They discussed various other matters as well. The chief also taught the religious scholar several prayers and instructions explaining how he could communicate with the other Jinn chief. Later, the chief expressed his wish that the religious scholar should personally speak with that other chief. That way, the religious scholar would also be able to establish a good relationship with him. Afterward, the religious scholar was treated to a large meal. There was plenty of food and hospitality. Eventually, the religious scholar became sleepy. He was taken to a room that had been prepared for him. He lay down and fell asleep. He had no idea how long he slept. It may have been quite a long time. Eventually, someone came and woke him. "Maulana, wake up. It's time for you to go. I'll take you back to your world." The religious scholar got up. They took him back to the same place where he had first entered the royal palace. When he reached the staircase, he stepped onto it. The staircase immediately began rising upward. Within a few seconds, it had reached the surface. All around him, there was complete darkness. But something strange happened. Although the staircase had come up from beneath the water, not a single part of his body was wet. Not even his clothes. He stepped off the staircase. He looked around and saw nothing but darkness. He thought, "I went to that world, ate so much food, talked with them, and even slept there. And now it's still completely dark here. What happened?" Anyway, he returned home. After arriving, he realized that he had actually been gone for only a few hours. Yet so many things had happened during that short period. Once he returned to his room, he used the prayers and instructions he had learned there to try to contact the other Jinn chief. And he succeeded. When he finally spoke with the chief himself appeared before him. The religious scholar told him everything that had happened. The moment the chief heard what his Jinn had done, he became extremely angry. He said, "A Jinn from my own clan did this? Has our clan become so poor that he has to steal human food? And I have already received many complaints about this Jinn. He has always been troublesome. All right, I will deal with this matter. You can rest assured. He will never come to disturb this man again." After that, the chief apparently captured the troublesome Jinn from his own clan. He punished him severely. However, he did not sentence him to death. The Jinn in that clan did not tolerate disturbing human beings. Since he had repeatedly harassed a human, he was sent to prison, the prison belonging to his own clan. After that, no major problems occurred again. There were a few small incidents from time to time, but nothing serious. As for how the chief came, how the Jinn was captured, and how they dealt with him, those were matters handled according to their own ways. Alhamdulillah, after that, Shahabuddin never experienced anything like this again. Shahabuddin is now much older, but he still continues his cattle business. There was one final matter. Since a Jinn had repeatedly affected and disturbed him, the Jinn who had helped the religious scholar communicate with the chiefs also made a request. They wanted some food. They asked for around 10 kilograms of sweets, 10 kilograms of beef, and 10 kilograms of chicken, all properly cooked. They instructed Shahabuddin to prepare the food and leave it beside the irrigation machine shed, the same shed where he had once heard those horrifying sounds. The reason was that several Jinn who were loyal followers of the first Jinn chief had helped the religious scholar communicate with that chief several times. As a gesture of gratitude, they wanted to eat the food. The food was prepared and left there for them. And after that, everything remained peaceful. Even today, Shahabuddin rarely goes out at night. Especially, he avoids walking around alone. And even when he does have to go somewhere alone, he generally avoids traveling after the Isha prayer. Things have changed greatly now. There is electricity and light everywhere. Back then, the situation was completely different. Alhamdulillah, Shahabuddin is still healthy. Even at his advanced age, he continues to work in the cattle business. We wish him all the best and keep him in our prayers. May Allah Almighty grant him a long life, keep him healthy, and allow him to remain among us for many more years.